It's really a pleasure to be here in Croatia with you guys. How many of you were at last year's Web Summer Camp? Okay. And at last year's Web Summer Camp, how many of you guys attended the introduction to Easy Platform with Bertrand, where they were talking about the bike ride? Okay. So there won't be too much overlap then. We have a tutorial that we're working on that's intended to walk you through the first basic steps of how to get started using Easy Platform. When I first joined Easy Systems, one of the first things that I worked on was trying to figure out how we can make the developer experience really positive, how we can improve that, and how we can get the steps that you take to enter the product to be smooth and fun and easy to understand. So we reorganized how we've got our documentation laid out, and we've gone through our beginner tutorial and tried to make that a really positive introduction. And we're continuing to improve that and work on it. We've gotten community feedback as you guys have been using the tutorial, and we see ways that we can improve. So we'll go ahead and walk through that today. And I also want to talk about how we have built easyplatform.com. You might have seen that website before. It used to be used for marketing to just kind of show everyone, hey, we've got this new product, Easy Platform. And we've decided to use that domain name to create a developer hub, which right now has just been finished. And I don't know if it will be live during this session or if it might be later today. But our IT department just has to flip the switch on the DNS, and then we'll be good. So I want to spend most of our time in the code. So I've got a short presentation with 3 slides. And I also don't want to reproduce the exact same thing that we presented last year. So I would recommend to watch the video from last year's session to really absorb a lot of the content that was presented there. And instead of spending a lot of time going over the concepts in the front, I think that what we'll do is as we're going through the steps, we're going to really talk about the concepts along the way. So the first thing that I want to talk about is Easy Platform is a next generation CMS with a 17-year history. Now it just came out at the end of last year. I guess sort of in the same way that a car might come out the year before, like we're excited about seeing the 2017 models of the cars. I kind of think of the product as having been launched right at the beginning of the year, even though it was right at the end of last year, that they were really finalizing everything. So it's about 9 months old. That means that there's a lot that's new, there's a lot that needs to be done. A 9-month-old product is obviously going to have a lot of areas that need to be improved and need to be fleshed out and finished. But we're building on the experience of Easy Publish, and the company has many years of experience to bring to the table with that. So imagine working on any project that you're working on and having a chance to just completely start over and do it the right way. And that's what we've had the privilege of doing at Easy. Okay, so I want to go straight to the code. How many of you guys have downloaded the VirtualBox? So if you've got the VirtualBox, then you should be able to go to the Easy Platform project, and it should run. And we've got a branch that we'll switch to when we're ready to get into the tutorial, but let me switch back to the first step. Okay. Going to clear the cache. So there's a command to clear the cache that uses the built-in Symfony system, but we find that that can sometimes have some problems. So what you're about to see me do is just basically clearing the cache manually with an rm rf dev. And this should return us to the same state that we were in. So if you open your browser, it should be all wired up, and it should load a very, very plain page. So everyone raise your hand when you see that page, if it's working for you. Okay. So while the rest of you are getting to this point, let me know if you have any questions about getting this running. I'd like to talk a little bit about developer experience. So whenever we were first getting me on board at Easy Systems, I came in with absolutely no knowledge of this product. And it's been really fun to capture my experience and my personal journey as I find out more about it. I found different places in our documentation that were just not useful or very confusing, and I was able to do something about it, talking to the development team, talking to the documentation team, and saying, hey guys, can we work on this section, or can we reorganize it like this? And it's been really a fun process to explore with a completely clean slate. And what I'd like to do is capture that same experience from every one of you. If you are new to Easy Platform, I would love to hear from you about what it's like as you're coming to this product, as you're seeing, is this a tool that is useful to me? Is this something that I can actually accomplish my goals, or does it need things to be extended or changed, or how it should grow? And I think that that's one of the really cool things about Easy Platform. It's coming from a great company, and it's coming with a great community. And the fact that it's open source, the fact that we can all send pull requests, the fact that we can all shape this together and make it our own thing is really exciting. I've already been able to do my first few pull requests, but most of them have just been to adjust the documentation. So as I'm learning more about the product, the first few things that I did with the product were steps that our web product manager set out for me to kind of leave me some breadcrumbs and guide me into understanding the basics of the product. And that was a really fun experience. I discovered that there were some questions that came up as I was building something with the product, and those questions were answered by our team. We've got a great team, and everyone's very active on the community Slack. So if you ever have questions, feel free to reach out. And whether it's other community members or members of Easy Systems, there's usually an answer not far behind the question. I'm not sure, can someone that doesn't have a modified etc/host file check easyplatform.com and tell me if we've gone live yet? I'm not sure if we have. And actually, inside the virtual box would be a clean area to check, easyplatform.com. It's probably still a redirect to our, oh, you know what? We have gone live. So I would like to introduce easyplatform.com. This just came online this morning, and this was the first product that we have built that actually uses Easy Platform. There's been a bridge that was built between the legacy product, Easy Publish, and the new product, Easy Platform. And that bridge was called Easy Publish Platform. And there's a lot of words going on there. So basically what's happened is that we had a PHP CMS. And then we decided we're going to embrace the world of Symfony, the framework. And in order to do that, we didn't want to leave people in the dust. So we created a sort of hybrid, and that hybrid has enabled people to continue to benefit from all of the features that have been in Easy Publish for a long time, and move into the world of Symfony and to start to work in that area. Our legacy product is rock solid. It's still a great tool, and it's still something that we recommend for a lot of use cases. Because of the fact that Easy Platform is so brand new, there's a lot of things that we have planned to bring to the product, and there's a lot of things that we want to do with it, in addition to catching up on the features that were in Easy Publish. So as you look at different problems that you need to solve, you might consider, is it ready? Is Easy Platform the tool that you should use? Or are there features that you need from Easy Publish Platform or Easy Publish to solve those problems? And as we race forward to do all of the things that need to be done in a brand new product, of course, these features will be catching up more and more. This being our first actual project that we internally have done to create this website, we wanted to learn about what it's like to go ahead and build a site. Now, this isn't the first time we've used the product. We've actually, of course, put it through its paces, and we've got a great QA team. We test the product. We set up our own little test projects. But this is our first live release of something that is built on Easy Platform. And we decided that we wanted to do the whole process open source, so you can see every line of code that we've written to make this website. And I'll take you to that. If you go to github.com/easysystems, and then easyplatform.com with a dash. This right here is that website that we were just looking at. And by looking through the pull requests from beginning to end, looking through the commits, you can see what it's like to go from 0 to a complete website. Now, I say a complete website, and it is, but it's very basic right now. All that you can do here right now, besides play with this awesome slider, is download Easy Platform. And that was our main goal. We had a very confusing download experience before, and I think that that was the product of so many years of putting together newer and better things. And we kind of had a pile of dust that we needed to blow off and start fresh here with a nice clean download. Whenever you want to go from the download section where you can get the product, and I'm sorry about the resolution here. Once you've downloaded the product, we also wanted to have a very easy way to get started. So I'm going to go to easy.no. And our plan is to bring in all of the documentation. Sorry, doc.easy.no. Our plan is to bring in all of the documentation regarding anything related to development and bring that into easyplatform.com. This is a very tiny screen. Okay, so when you get to this website, doc.easy.no, you can choose whether you want to experience the documentation that is for non-technical people, for the editors, or you can click on developer, and basically everything in this section is going to be moved over to easyplatform.com. And we want to use Easy Platform to manage our documentation as well. I think Microsoft was the one that coined the phrase dog fooding. When you use your own product so that you can experience it, it makes perfect sense. Like, hey, we make this cool thing, we should put it to use. And that's what we want to do with our documentation. Internally, some of the people in the company are like, well, I'm not sure if we want to use Easy Platform yet because it doesn't have this feature or that feature. And we're like, bingo, that's why we want to use it, because as we feel the pain points, we're going to be able to address them in short order. So when you go to the documentation, there is that new to Easy Platform, get started. So this right here is where you want to begin. If you've downloaded the product and you want to get started, this should be the place that you go. And when you get here, it's going to give you some of the basics, your system requirements, and the things that you need to install Easy Systems. And we'll talk about those some as we go through the bike ride tutorial. And then after you've successfully installed, which is the state in which your VirtualBox is right now, once you've successfully installed, you can follow a tutorial path. Now, the one that we recommend to start with is building a bicycle route tracker. So this is what we're going to be doing here today. And this is the course that is lined up inside of the Git branch that has been committed to that VirtualBox. So, has everybody successfully loaded this page right here inside of your VirtualBox? If you've successfully loaded that up, let me see your hand. Are there still some issues on some of the boxes? Raise your hand if you're having trouble. Okay. We've got all of our convoy here today, so would some of you easy guys come over to the ones having trouble and see if we can help them to successfully get this running right here. Can you raise your hands again? Okay, so these two here. This is Kamil and Piotr. They're from our Polish team. And we have Yanni here. And he's from our professional services team. So we'll give them just a moment. And let me look at my notes. I'm not checking Facebook. This is a tiny screen as well, and I had some things that I wanted to make sure that I cover. Okay. Good. So let me go through what we'll be working on today. What we're looking at right now is Easy Platform running basically as a Symfony app in PHP on a VirtualBox. So we don't want to get lost here. We want to stay really oriented to what we have going on. What I did to create this right here was go to our GitHub page and do a clone of our latest version. And then on top of that clone, I added the installation folder for the Web Summer Camp and then shipped that off, and that was it. Now, in the configuration file, I told it to wire up to the database that is set up for the Web Summer Camp. So because that's already been done for you, I'll just describe how you would do that as you're installing things yourself. Default parameters might be, is that the one? Parameters.yaml.dist. Okay, I am really struggling with this tininess. And it doesn't want to let me scoot it over. There. Okay, so what I did to get this working was basically tell it, use this database. When you're running the installation, here's what you're going to do. You can download the tarball, or you can clone the Git repo, or you can use Composer. What I like to do is clone our Git repo, and then I run Composer install. And what Composer install does, inside of the world of Symfony, how many of you are familiar with Symfony? How many of you have used Symfony to build something? Okay, very good. So you know that Symfony is going to do a lot of things for you. And one of the things that we really wanted to achieve with our new product is tapping into the community that's available around Symfony. Composer is going to be pulling packages from all over the community and providing a lot of code that we can build our things upon, both our product and the products that you build using Easy Platform. So you've downloaded or you've cloned the repo, and you run Composer install, and it goes out based on the file that specifies packages for the project, and that's going to be composer.json. It's going to go out and grab all of the packages that are specified, and it's going to install into the proper place inside of your local installation. And there's a hook to run a script afterwards that's going to interactively ask you to specify certain things, like the name of your database. In the tutorial, we suggest using a database named something like Easy Platform Tutorial. But really the thing that matters is that the name that you specify is actually the name of the database that you're using. So even though that's going to be different in the tutorial, in what you read and what we've got on our machine, once they're lined up, once they connect, you're good to go. The next thing that you have to do, though, is to actually get the data from the preset dump that we have to load up all of the things. And that's something that you can view inside of the installation Oh, it's so small. Okay, app installation, run.shell. So this command right here is telling it to install for the environment production, and that's getting the data. So once you've gotten the database, that's why it works. That's why you're able to see this page. And what is this page? This page is the default. It looks like something that you might see from a website from 1999, but it's not. What's happening here is that there's absolutely no content inside of this CMS. So we've gone ahead and just put something in there so that you can see, oh, hey, it's working. Now what we're going to do is create the bike ride app, and we're going to replace this content, and we're going to kind of swap it out from what it's got right now, piece by piece. Were you guys able to get things running? Cool. Okay, so this is such a small screen. I'm so sorry. I'm going to close some tabs here. There we go. And there. So, part one, setting up Easy Platform. I think that's the arrow for part two. Yeah. So this is the view of what we're going for. And to save time, we've got the files all ready to go so that you don't have to do anything with design work. All of the CSS is ready to go for you. The first step is to take a look at the back end. So if you do /easy, I believe this is the same as we had in Easy Publish. This will take you to the back end, and you can log in with the username admin, and the password is publish. So if everyone wants to go ahead and log in to that, because I'm in development mode, there's a lot of things running right now that would not normally run. So one trick, if it's running really slowly for you, is to go to your Apache vhost and change from development mode to production mode so that you don't get this toolbar down here. If you're just going into the back end to do things that aren't related to publishing code or configuration files, that can speed things up for you. So here's admin. And I think that I changed my password already, so yeah. So the default password is publish. But let me show you really quickly how to change the default password, because of course, if you've got a live installation of Easy Platform and someone knows that it's the username and password by default, they're getting right into the back. So you want to change that as one of the first things that you do. We've changed a few things here. Okay, I won't go to that. There we go. Okay, so give me just a moment because it's so small I'm not oriented. Does anybody know what to do to make this go full screen? I know I can do this one, and then I'm not familiar with the Ubuntu interface to get it to make the bar disappear. No? F11? Perfect. Thank you so much. Okay, so I'm going to minimize the sides here. There we go. Now I'm oriented again. Sorry about that. So what we're looking at right here is our content. This is the default, and that's what you see whenever you're on. Oh, now it's, okay, perfect. And I forgot to leave a tab open. easyplatform.websc. There we go. When you're viewing this, you're seeing the content that is stored in here. Now, this content has a location ID of 2 and a content ID of 1. Locations refer to one content, but content can have several locations. So if you create something and you want it to be displayed on multiple websites or in multiple areas, you can have multiple locations for that content. But the default is location ID 2. And what we're going to do in just a moment is use that location ID to swap out the view. And I just remembered as I got disoriented there that I was supposed to show doing the password there. There we go. It was hidden. So changing the password really quick, you go to the admin and then users. And the users are content. There's a kind of user for administrator. And administrator user. And then you can edit the content. I had an open draft because I was doing this earlier and did not publish. Once you're editing the content, then here is password, and you can type a new password. I typed test as the password for mine. So once, what's that? Yes, the default password is publish. And if you want to go and change it, all you have to do is specify the new password that you want to be there. Now, because it's content, you want to click on publish to actually save that password and take it live, so to speak. I'm going to discard changes because I've already changed that there. Okay, so let's get to the tutorial. To use a custom template when rendering the root content, we're going to create a content view configuration block for Easy Publish. And I'll show you where that's going to go. If you open the app, which is where all of your back-end stuff is going to be here, we've got the config, and inside of the config we have easyplatform.yaml. So let's talk about the YAML for just a minute. We've got configuration for a lot of different things, but ultimately what's happening whenever everything runs is that all of the YAML files are going to be kind of put together into one long thing. So there's a lot of flexibility, and whenever we built easyplatform.com, you'll see that we did a kind of a little bit of a different approach to what you'll see in the tutorial. And basically what you can do is create your own YAML file if you want to, specify the right hierarchy to the things that you're trying to change, and once it's been included, as I believe we're doing inside of this file, actually up here. So you see up here how things can be imported. You can add an import there. So if you want to have your own little YAML file that just keeps all of your stuff off to the side, you can do that. Import it, and it'll all just get squashed into the same big file the way that Symfony views it. So inside of the easyplatform.yaml file, we're going to specify a default view, and then we're going to create that view. Now, everyone here is familiar with MVC, Model View Controller. Okay, so the views that we're going to use are going to be written in Twig, and Twig ultimately compiles down to PHP under the hood, but it gives a really nice, convenient interface to type the things that you want in the front end and separate your concerns so that there's no business logic in the front end. I was talking to Sylvain Goutard, our web product manager. He was telling me about in our previous template system, you were able to actually have a little bit of business logic in the template. And that's no longer the case. So now there's a really good, strong separation of concerns so that all of the business logic needs to be in controllers. Okay, so what we can do is follow down, oops, no, that's not good. Let's quit that. We can follow down, oh my, did it just go away completely? I think we've lost, good gracious, we've lost our virtual box here. Hopefully, it is right where we left it. Okay, it seems it's going to take a moment to boot up. Oh dear. There must be something in the air. Okay. Something in the code. Yeah, we have a security feature I didn't tell you about where if Easy Platform detects that you're taking too long to do something, it just shuts everything down. Okay, Easy Platform. And full screen, switch, and F11. Well, we've lost our F11 powers on my machine. Sorry about that. Okay, it did bring us right back. That's great. So in the easyplatform.yaml file, we're going to specify, and I still have access there. We're going to specify the view that we're going to be working with. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to open the tutorial over here and then switch back and forth because I think this will give us a little bit larger. Get started, tutorials, build a bicycle route tracker. We can shrink that, close that, and go full screen. That's a little bit better. Okay. And what step were we on here? Customizing the general layout. Okay, here's the file. Is that easier to see? Okay. So here's what we're going to specify. A full view is going to represent a complete page or a complete view with everything. Now, you might have a partial view that could just be a little chunk that you want to render inside of a page. A full view is going to be the whole page itself. And we're going to specify that the root folder is going to use a template inside of this path, which is a folder that we're going to create. And we're going to name that file root_folder.html.twig. And we're going to tell it that it's going to match based on ID location 2. Now, when I first saw that, it kind of blew my mind. I'm like, okay, you just sort of have to know the dark magic here and say, aha, ID location 2, and memorize it. And if you forget one day, it's like, oh man, what was that number? I mean, obviously, that's not the case. You can go to the back end and see what the ID is of your content. And you'll use that frequently. And you'll see, as we built easyplatform.com, that we're specifying specific content by ID and saying that when there's a match for this, or go fetch this ID, that those numbers can be stored in the YAML files. And you'll see inside of the easy platform. In fact, let me just go there and show you. No. GitHub. Okay, we're going to do this in not VirtualBox. There. GitHub.com. We'll take a look at the other way that we did the config here, so you can kind of contrast between them. And I did not keep an eye on the time. What time is our break supposed to be?
11.
At 11?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so inside of this, you can see we created a file called config_easyplatform_com. That's not a magic name. The system's not looking at that to do anything special. We just picked that name. And then inside of the config, I want to say here, nope, inside of the config.yaml, we added a line, just like we were saying earlier, added the line to say, hey, import this so that all of these things get squashed into the main flow there. And you can see inside of easy platform underscore here, we're specifying a parameter of layout ID, and we're saying that's going to be ID number 54. So when I'm talking about finding these things and going to the back end to find them, you can see the default by going to the existing content and going to details. And it's taking its sweet time. Well, while it's, okay, here it is. The location ID, I believe, is a number set in the database, and it's going to be incremented as you create content. Oh wait, location ID. Now the content ID is definitely incremented as you create it, and I think, not sure, do you guys know if a location ID gets freed up if it's changed or deleted?
No, it doesn't.
Okay, so it's going to just keep going up, up, up. Sorry?
It's unique, like always.
Always unique, yeah. Yeah, the system will auto-increment as you create locations, as you create content. Those numbers individually will go up, up, up. Okay, so when we look at content, and we see this default content, I can go to details, and I can see the content ID and the location ID. So you can always find those things. Now, one thing that we've run into as we've been developing, and I mean, it's obvious that this would happen, but I just kind of discovered it as we were going along. Basically, whenever you create something on your development machine, and you've used our system to build up the content, and it's been issued these auto-incrementing numbers, then you might specify, I want this specific number for the content. And then you go to a production machine, and you're building things out there, and they're different numbers. So that's why you're going to see different files that can be pulled in based on the environment that you're in. Inside of the config, you can see config prod, config dev, and you can see that there's places that you could set aside the values for your production and the values for your development environments that can be shared with other developers as you check them in. And that's a way that you can make sure that you're not losing anything by using two different places that you're building things. Okay, do we have any questions so far about where we're at, where we're going, where we're from? Okay. Yes.
Is there a matching from this location IDs to content? So can I open a browser URL to find this content to or content 55 and see the content item in the back office?
Can you guys help me out there? Is there a path that you can go to just hit the? Okay. Here, let's actually, we're supposed to use this. Can you say that again with the microphone?
Yes. We have URL alias, but it's the showing the content right now is via the URL. But when we have a draft, we cannot show the URL because the URL class needs to have there is no location. So if content doesn't have a location, we've got a URL which we can show in the draft, and that's the proper way to show the object. But right now we have to take a look at documentation to get the proper URL.
Okay.
I can take a look and then I tell you.
Perfect. Okay. So while he checks that out, we'll continue, and then as soon as he's found that, we can take a look at that. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We'll start writing some code here. Everybody open the file easyplatform.yaml. And when you're in the file, scroll down to the bottom. But first, let me just describe something here. You see Easy Publish at the top. And I told you we're talking about Easy Platform. That might be a little bit confusing. Easy Publish is a name that you're going to see a lot. We're actually in Easy Platform, but we're using the common core to the bridge that we built, Easy Publish Platform. And so the naming really makes sense to have a bit of our history in there. But don't worry, you're not actually running Easy Publish. You're really running Easy Platform. So down here at the bottom, we're going to make sure, which is difficult on a tiny screen, we're going to make sure that our indentation lines up properly. So right here, if everybody's on line 32 and indented 8 spaces, we should be ready to go. And what we're going to do is type out this hierarchy and specify a file that does not yet exist that we're about to create. So we'll do content view full root folder. Content view full root folder. And inside of that, we're going to specify the template and under what conditions that template will be the one that's represented. So the template is going to be full root folder. That means that inside of, I'm actually going to use Git to show the tree because it's a bigger view. Can everyone see that okay? I'll assume yes. So inside of app, we have the resources folder, and then the views folder inside of that, and this is where all the views go. Now, because there's nothing in, let me actually go fast forward here. This is what it'll look like. You'll have a folder called full, and then inside of that, you'll put all the templates that represent a full rendering of something, like a page. And that's what we've done here by placing that file. So we'll go through these steps. And interesting. I know. The best place to show probably is to go to Easy Systems. And our demo has a few of these things. Here's another thing to talk about. As you look at easyplatform.com, you'll see the way that we've built that. As you look at the tutorial, you'll see the recommendation for that. And as you look at the demo, then you'll see yet another way of doing things. Now, this is not because we couldn't all get on the same page. This is because it's a very flexible system, and there's a lot of different ways to do things, a lot of right ways to do things. We do have best practices that we recommend, and they're on our documentation. I'm still learning them myself, and I know that these guys can really speak to the best practices that they've come across as developers and as professional service out on the field with clients. So if you have any questions about best practices, you can reach out and we can connect with that. But there's multiple different ways that you can implement things that, you know, if it's functional, if it works, you should be good to go. So in this demo, you can see the way that it's been built, where there's a folder for full, and there are full views, and then you can see how you might have some other files laid out. So if you're wondering, you know, kind of how a structure might look, this is the way that things are put in the demo at least. So now that we've got down to root folder, let me get back to our tutorial. We're going to type out template and root_folder.html.twig. Full root underscore okay, and then we're making ourselves a little promise here that we'll actually go make that file. We're going to do the match ID location to. Okay. Okay, so once we've got that set, every time that you change a YAML file, or perhaps every time that you do anything, it's not a bad idea to clear the cache. Even though in the development mode, it's supposed to be doing things the right way, even this command right here does not necessarily always get the job done. So as I showed you when I was first getting started on this, what I will often do is just go straight to where's that folder? Summer camp, and CD workshops, and CD easy platform, and so we'll go into the app folder, which is where the cache is stored. And you can see the cache folder right there. Inside of the cache folder, you will see whatever cache is running. If you're in production mode, the cache folder will be called prod. If you're in development mode, the cache folder will be called dev. And an rm/rf on the dev folder is going to clear the cache in a pretty harsh way. The other approach that's recommended in the tutorial, that's a softer way of doing pretty much what we just did there. I don't know why that doesn't work as it would be hoped that it might work. You guys have any ideas? I'm curious about that. That's one of the things I'll want to look into more. So once you've cleared your cache, basically you got a fresh start at everything. And that means that the changes that we made in this YAML file have a clear shot, and we know everything's going to be fine, or should be at least. And I discovered that these files are actually stored in several different places. So we've got a repository. If you see at the bottom there, oh, you can't see at the bottom there. Well, the links go to an Easy Systems repository and to one of our lead developers repository. So I promise I'm going to get on this, and we're going to put it all in one place, and it'll be a lot easier to follow looking at a single repository. But for right now, you don't have to do these things. You don't have to download index.html. You don't have to download assets.zip because that's already been done in branch step 1. So what we'll do is look at the situation and then imagine a step so that we can skip forward. What we've done is edit the YAML file. What we were about to do next is to create inside of the views that full directory and then place that file that we promised we would make inside of that directory. Instead of that, what we're going to do is switch to the branch in which that's already been downloaded, but I just realized probably need to run git fetch, git pull, get everything down to make sure that you have that branch. So git fetch, and of course mine already has this. Can you guys let me know how that goes? Are you able to? You'll know that you've got the right thing whenever you see this. When you type git branch, you'll be on master, and you'll see step 1. Does everybody see step 1? Or are we still pulling things down? You're seeing it? Okay. Not seeing it yet. So we want to make sure that you've pulled that latest down, and we were supposed to do that at the beginning of this session. But while you guys are getting that pulled down, let me ask, do you guys, Camille, Piotr, or Yanni, have any thoughts that you'd like to share, add some context to what we've been doing so far? Okay. Yes.
Hello. Maybe one thing about comments. Sometimes you have to change the default settings in your PHP ini file for max execution time or max nesting level. It's mostly because of Symfony. The Symfony cookbook says about it. But it's good practice to remember to add the PHP and memory limit to -1 before running the commands, because it like to hang out, and max execution time is even if it's set to 0 in a PHP ini file, it's like to write that it's there's some errors in a comment. That's the issue with cache, I guess, we had earlier. That's the race condition, I guess.
Okay. Yeah, that's good to know. Yeah, and I've noticed that, like you'll see that -1 in the installation run. Yeah, we disable the memory limit. Is that where you were? Yeah. That is important. I've also noticed, like, if you set up a cloud server to play around, you're going to want to have swap space enabled, because most cloud servers that you might just spin up to try something are probably going to have maybe 1 gig of RAM, 2 gigs of RAM, and you're going to want to go ahead and create swap. Now, I really don't recommend taking the script that I wrote on my personal GitHub account that I'm about to show you, but I just want to let you know it's there in case it's interesting to you. It is not meant to represent easy systems or the right way to do things. It's a script that I wrote because I was going through these particular steps over and over again, and I just kind of wanted to have them for my own personal convenience. GitHub, David Liedle, easy. So this is not the right way to do all the things. However, these steps do work for me personally, so I just captured them in a way that would be reproducible without doing all the typing. And as you can see, I'm actually doing a lot more than is actually necessary to install Easy Platform. I'm installing basically the kinds of things that I want to have on my droplet, which is what I use to play around with some of these things. So I'm installing Mosh, which is an awesome alternative to SSH. You can close your laptop, switch Wi-Fi networks, open it again, and you're still connected to your SSH session. Z shell is my preferred shell. HTOP and Emacs. I should also install a good text editor, but I like that operating system. I get Git, and here's where I create the swap file. So if you're interested, you can go to my GitHub. You can see the things that I'm just playing with. It's just a sandbox that I like to play around with. Might be kind of fun to take a look if you want to see just some of the steps. And I do some completely unnecessary things in the script as well, like installing the JDK and getting a copy of Solr on there, because I'm not even really using it. But these are all things that Easy Platform can work with, and I just wanted to have a script that gets everything out there on the same box for me to just kind of see it all together. And in here you can see running Composer install with the memory limit set to -1 and setting up all of the data also using memory limit -1. How's it going getting a copy of the branch step 1? Does everybody have it yet? Does anybody have it yet? Okay. Looks like we're still, who does not have it? Who does not have the step 1 branch? Okay. Okay. Yanni or Camille or Piotr, can you help see if you can get the... Looks like he's set. Okay. Sorry. Okay. While we're here, though, just as everyone gets caught up, I want to talk about permissions really quickly. And I'm curious, how many of you have installed Easy Platform all by yourself and have gotten it running? Okay. Cool. So you might have run into this whenever you installed it. I know I do. Whenever you install as a user or as root, if you're doing it the wrong way like I do, then you can go ahead and do your git pull and make sure that you've got the latest of your stuff. But when you go to run it, it just doesn't work because the permissions need to be set to the user of the web server. So in this case, www-data. And what that's doing is getting the permissions set up to run, but then you're in a situation where now you can't do anything with Git because it's not that user. So I'm kind of lazy and I just switch the permissions back and forth. I mean, the right way would be probably to make yourself a member of that group and do the things right. So I could definitely take a more sophisticated approach to the problem, but as I was working with Sylvain on easyplatform.com, I just wrote myself a little shell script that automatically would toggle things back and forth for the permissions recursively through the whole directory of the project so that I would be able to quickly switch and pull things from Git or switch back and actually run the site. So yeah, just a note on the permissions there. Okay, so let's go ahead and I'll switch my branch. Git checkout, step 1. Oh, that's not good. What did I not do? Okay. Stashing is awesome. So I really freaked out yesterday because right as soon as I switched branches, I went to test and it was not working. And I was pacing back and forth in my hotel room, and then I came back about 2 minutes later and I was like, okay, hit refresh. And it was working, and I realized, oh, you know what? I should probably have cleared the cache. So let's see here. Yes. If you just hit refresh after switching branches, you're still seeing the same thing. So hopefully, if we come in and coffee break in 23 minutes. Sorry, this is the wrong one. There. if we go to cd app cache, we've got the dev cache, and I'm going to do rm rf dev. Now, hopefully, we're going to see the result of following the next steps in the tutorial, and then I'll just sort of describe how those steps were affected here. And there it is working. So if you ever have one of those mind-blowing moments where it's like, I know I changed this, try clearing the cache, because it's very likely that you're looking at an older copy of what's going on there. And that can be very frustrating because your mind can be following through like, I just made a change to my code. Did it work? Did it not work? And you really can't find out if you're only looking at your cache. You have to clear it. You have to be able to see the very latest. So let me see if I can get a view that shows, you know what, I'm just going to switch to GitHub because it's a larger view. And it'll still let us see the tree here. Okay. So in the tutorial, you're seeing instructions to download index.html and name it rootfolder.html.twig. So even though the plain index.html, which I'll pull up here, does not have really anything about it that's twig, it can still be a twig file because we're going to go in there and insert the things that are instructions to twig to be parsed. So here we're looking at the index file, and it's hard-coded. You can see references to the CSS files. You can see that we're bringing in font awesome, all the things. And every row is being built by hand, and there's no actual real content. So what we're going to do is take those pieces that need to be content and need to be managed, and we're going to swap them out and actually create content in the database, and we're going to use this as our starting point. So we want to actually swap out some of these pieces, and that's what we get with this index. Assets.zip are all of those things that were being pointed to by the instructions in the hard-coded file, and that means that put all together, you see this. It is not anything that works. It is simply all of the hard-coded stuff as a starting point, and we can use that to swap everything out. Oh, okay, it keeps blowing my mind to have both PHP storms open, so I'm going to quit that one. There we go. And I do not know why F11 stopped working. It was so nice while it lasted. Oh, okay. That's what it is. So there's not really a way to get view up, go away. View, enter full screen. All right, that's nice. So, no shortcut. So I'm going to just close some things up here that we don't need to have open. That one's good. That one can go. That one can go. Okay, so let's describe the process that's going right now as a static website so that we understand what we're changing. When we make a request, and now I can't get back over to the other one. Tell you what, I'll switch over to this. And, well, that's no good because, there. Okay. So when we make a request to this URL, which of course is pointed internally in the VirtualBox, we've got the default route that is being caught by Symfony and we've got everything kind of wired up to just display stuff, but there's no actual file where we are displaying anything until we create that file, that view that we have created in, please come back. Okay, that we have created in the full views root folder HTML twig. The YAML file is being used to match location ID 2, but right now it's not being displayed in the template because the template isn't actually asking for anything to start with. So even though we're saying location ID 2 needs to match the root folder, we're not taking advantage of that. We have no content. There's the default, but we'll get rid of it and make content. And we have a template that doesn't actually do anything. It just has static HTML. Are there any questions, comments, thoughts at this point? Okay. Configuration, sure. Okay. Okay. So, do you have it? Oh no. You could possibly cut and paste from the GitHub repo? Okay. So, looks like we've got 15 minutes until our break. Don't let me forget. So we'll grab our coffee and build this out. Here we go. Oh no. There we go. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do to swap things out is we're going to make use of the function in Twig that's going to pull in the CSS files. Right now the files are hard-coded, and we'll find those. You know what? I should switch my branch back so that you can see where these edits are done. Oh, I know. We'll switch back and forth between the HTML page and this piece here. That should do the trick. There we go. Okay. So when we're looking at my browser here, we're looking at the files that you download. And when we're looking in the VirtualBox, we're looking at the result of taking the steps. So if you want to type along, you can. If you've switched to the branch, you already have these steps done. That was probably the bulk of the work, getting all the files downloaded and put into place. So do you guys want to code through it, or do you want to talk through it? Probably the safest to talk through it. So I'll describe these changes that we're making here. And then if you want to, you can switch your branch back to master so that you get rid of the end result. And you can type out these things. And I'll go slow enough that you can actually type out the things. So where you see the CSS styles here, what we're going to do is tell Twig, hey, go and grab the assets that are stored in this area and pop them out as style sheets. And you can see this command right here. We're using the style sheets function, and we're saying go into the assets folder, into the CSS folder, and grab everything. And it's going to do a filter, so it's going to pipe it through some processing. And you can actually wire this up to do languages like Sass or less. If you want to write there and pipe it through, and aesthetic can handle the processing of all of these things for you. So once everything's wired up, it handles that workflow. And then for each of those things, it's going to create a tag where it's got the normal style sheet there. And then we're going to specify that the asset URL, which is being pulled as part of this function for each one, is going to be inserted there. So basically, what this does is write what this is. So this is the first step where we're actually starting to use the Twig template, but we're not yet using Easy Systems, Easy Platform, I'm sorry. So this first step of swapping that out is shown in here. And then we'll go back to the tutorial and look at the next step here. Is everybody good up to this point here? Okay, so there's a link to the Symfony aesthetic doc. If you want to see more about the preprocessed SAS and less languages and the way that it handles these kinds of things, you can read more over there. And we've done our best to cover in our documentation the things that are specific to Easy Platform, and we're not trying to overlap with Symfony documentation. So if there's something specific to Symfony or specific to Composer package or bundle that you want to work with, then we'll try our best to link out to those things and keep our focus on coverage of the product itself, as given here where it links out to the Symfony documentation. So it's iterating over loading these style sheets. Now we're going to do the same thing for the JavaScript. You can see at the bottom here, in the original file that you download, you've got the... Oh, my watch thinks that I was asking it to process voice. We've got the JavaScript down here, and what we're going to do is insert a function that tells Twig that it needs to pull files in and create those tags for us. So scrolling down to that same area, it looks like this. Basically the same thing where you format the tag how you want it to turn out, you insert the variable that needs to be swapped in, and then that variable is provided by the result of this function running through its argument, which is assets/JS, going to all of these things. Now the place that these assets folders are stored is hardwired in. Obviously there's not whack assets in this project, so you can see that there is a web folder, and this is where that assets folder lives. And one of the things that can be the most frustrating whenever I first start working with anything is I can install it and then I see an instruction and I'm like, well, okay, I perfectly understand this instruction, but I have no idea where the path is to get to that thing. This is where the path is to get to your assets. And whenever you dump assets, you can tell Symfony to get all of the different things put together, and it'll dump them into this web folder. And this is basically packing things up, ready to ship off to be the front-end display for the website. Inside of the CSS folder, you can see all of the different CSS styles that are being pulled through by that first code block that we did up top. And then down here, you can see all of the JS. And that's what those two blocks that we've just looked at handle there. Okay. So now we're going to swap out the images, and we're going to have this right here, this function from Twig, load this image for us. And again, inside the web folder is assumed by default when you use the asset function. So all you specify is assets, images, and then the name of the file. And we can take a look at where that's done. 128. Okay, so where we've got this ping image right here, that's where we're going to swap in the twig instruction to pull it from the assets instead. And that will be here. So this is what it looks like. In this particular case, rather than asking it to iterate through a folder and grab every single thing and pop it out, we're simply making the value of the source attribute be this variable, this function, which returns the correct path to the assets images and then the image that we've specified. Okay, and then the same thing is done for this logo. I won't even go there because it's exactly the same. Okay, so once again, anytime you change anything, it's very good to clear the cache. I'm not going to do it this way. I'm going to oops, I've got two terminals now too. Okay, so let's list, and we see, we've got dev cache, rm, rf, dev, and it's gone. So that means that the cache should be cleared. Obviously, because I'm on the branch that's got all of the steps we're doing, it's going to be slightly different than what you would see, but you should see the same thing. If you've typed in just those steps from the master branch, you should be seeing exactly this same thing. And if you're just following along on the step 1 branch, if you've cleared your cache and you refresh, you should see this same thing. Basically, exactly what we had, except now it's Twig pulling it in, making the URLs. Okay, and now here's where we're actually going to get in to getting content from Easy Platform and getting it to show up inside of our Twig template. And here's the magic part right here. You saw how we had Twig functions like asset. That's a Twig function. And of course you can read all of the Twig documentation to see their functions. We've written functions as well, and they're conveniently prefaced with easy. And these functions can allow you to actually reach in and get things out of the database. Now in MVC, you know that whenever you've got a controller that is calling up a view and saying like, hey view, I've been called at this route, so the model's given me the data and I want to pass you this data. So the default thing happening here is that content, this variable here, oops, I did not mean to click everything. And now it won't side scroll, okay. What is going on there? Click outside. Very good, thank you. What magic is this? So this variable content, which is very sensitive to clicking, is the place that the default location that we've gotten to, which is 2. The default is dumping the data, the values of our content into that variable. And so we're passing that variable as an argument into the function EasyContentName, which basically says, okay, here comes the data with our content. It's being passed into EasyContentName, and we're telling it, hey, grab the name from this and pop it out right here. Let's see where you can find the content name. And we've got only 3 minutes, so I'm going to try to make it fast, but we can, if you want to go over some more of this, this is where we start talking about some of the concepts here. So I'm in the back end on the virtual box. and I'm going to go to view the content, and here is the content name. So what we're asking for is this text right here, welcome to Easy Platform. It's very straightforward, and there are other things that we can talk about content name shortly after the break. We will look at how you can specify what that's called, which thing is the name. Where did it go? Okay, so a field is something under the content. So like let's say that the content is a blog, and one of the fields could be author. So in this case, the field is description. So we're passing content, the default one that came down for us by default, passing the content variable, and we're saying out of that content, please access the field description, and it'll pop out and display right here. And we can see in the back-end interface, okay, so we see short description and description. So we should be seeing this right here. And that's what we have loaded up here. So I don't think I've got that step in. So we'll pop that in. Yeah, that was coming up in step 2. We'll pop that into step 2 right after our coffee break. It's 10:59, so I think we'll take 15 minutes, and then we'll get into the content and swap it in here. During the break, had some feedback that we should probably give some more coverage to some of the basic concepts. And so I'd like to ask Yanni from Professional Services to come up, and he's going to go over some of the concepts that are involved. Just kind of make sure everything is clear as we're stepping through these processes. So, Yanni.
Yeah, thanks. So we got some feedback on the maybe the ambiguity of what exactly we're doing and working with. So first of all, what you're working with when you're working with Easy Platform, you're working with the Symfony framework. So if you know the Symfony framework, you already know a lot about these things. In addition to what Easy provides on top of the Symfony framework, it adds a number of features, but the content repository is the number one thing. So from the Symfony framework within, you will have access to the content repository very much in the same way as you would do with Doctrine or Propel or other ORMs. But with Easy, the content model is what we provide, and of course, together with it goes the administration interface, which we have been seeing today so far. So here, just a few details, because we went through the IDs and locations and things like that, but it's maybe a bit vague if you start from scratch with nothing. It's easier for me to show from a demo instance, which is has some content already. So here in a demo instance, we can see that we have a content tree. So this kind of a tree which always shows your different kind of content items. So it's dynamic model. You can have different kind of types of content, and then you create trees from that content. And technically you simply work in the administration interface to create the kind of structure, the fields, the things that you want. And then what we're working with the bike ride tutorial is we're creating a site that will render that content structure in a certain way. Easy itself does not define how you render it, how you build your menus, and so on. But this is the sort of basic idea that we're working with in the back end. As for details like content and location, you just technically can think of it as the same kind of tree that you used in the 90s with Windows 95 and 98 maybe, with, well, the Explorer is still there. But you have quite a bit of options for managing multiple locations and so on. There's probably a lot more than I should cover now, but sort of as a background information, what you have is Symfony framework and a content repository that offers you dynamic URL mapping and a lot of things. And what we're now doing is we're working with the content repository and creating a very basic public-facing site. We won't do any administration customization through code at least. So that's maybe the quick introduction to which maybe we should have had earlier, but at least we're responsive to feedback. So thanks.
Thank you, Jenny.
And of course, if you have any questions, just go ahead and ask me. I'm available for the next few days, obviously, for all of you guys here.
Yeah, and we've got, of course, today's introduction, but we're also going to have sessions from Camille and Piotr and a session from Yanni, where, of course, they'll go into much more advanced demonstrations of how to work with the product. So let me switch back to this headset really quick. Testing, 1, 2, okay. So is anybody having any difficulties running on your VBox to where we've gotten so far? Okay, good. Let's see, I'm going to close the demo there. So here's our local, and we've got only a couple of things running through the Twig functions, just our CSS and our JavaScript and our images, a couple of images that are actually being specified by these functions that are wiring up to our assets folder. And we've gotten 2 awesome tips. One is that I should stay full screen and just swipe between. That seems to be working well. And the other is that we can zoom out a little bit and be able to see more things. But I don't want to get that too tiny to read. So how does that look to everyone? Okay? All right. So what we're going to do next is to extract. Let me switch back. Nope. Okay. So we're going to extract the layout here where we've got what's going to be content. We're going to swap it in with this section, and the only thing that's going to be happening, this section, the only thing that's going to be happening is that we're going to just sort of almost do like a little test run to make sure that we're able to access things from inside of the repository. In this case, the default content that is being sent to us. So if you copy and paste this, replacing the large area starting, and I think it's specified here, starting around line 90. So buttons here. All the way down to the bottom of that section. We're going to get rid of all of this perfectly good markup that's showing us the hard-coded, and we're going to pop in this easy content name and easy render field function to get things out from the content that's been passed to this view. So copying, and then you know, I think I should switch to branch step 2. Let's see, git branch. We've got step 1. Okay. So what I'm going to do is switch to a branch called step 2, and then I can commit that branch as we're working together on this, and then you guys can pull it down if you need it. Git status. Okay, so we've got a couple of things that were generated during the Composer install, and what we can do is ignore these by going into PS project. We want to go to git ignore. I'm going to add these in. Paste simple. And save. So now, uh-oh. There we go. Now we should have a clean Git, and apparently I didn't get that one in there right. Bin security checker. Oh dear. So let's do undo. And I'll just do save. For some reason my keyboard shortcuts have gotten messed up here. I wonder if it's a permissions issue there. Save all. Okay. Now I'm having trouble getting it out. View, exit full screen. Here we are. Git status. Okay, so we'll add the .git ignore. Git commit m final of step 1. Git push. Oh, that's not good. You know what? I'm going to have to do this in a different place here. So let's go to VCS, Git, GitHub, me, and then there, Git status. Gets confusing working in and out of the virtual box. So what I'll need to do here is catch this up, git add, app, everything, and git commit m. Okay, clean up, git push, set upstream, origin, step 2. Okay, so now this should be caught up in there. Now I'll check out, git checkout, step 1, git status. That should be good, and then I can find the file, git ignore, and add these things in. That's something that we should probably consider adding coverall in our git ignore for the product itself. And I think that we have actually today, I've been seeing emails coming in on this, I think that we have version 1.5 ready. not yet listed in the branches there, but 1.5, I think today is the day, so I'll have to check on that after we're done. But the version that's running here was the head of our latest from 1.4.1 and whatever fixes we're in up to about 48 hours ago. So in here we need to ignore these files, bin, doctrine, deval. And bin security dash checker. And I'm going to switch to terminal. And that one hasn't been changed. So git branch step. I'm going to say step 2.1 because we've already got a step 2 that's a dirty branch. And git checkout step 2-1. And save this. Git commit. Ignore. Okay. Now you guys should be able to do a git fetch and pull down this git ignore, and then I'll save, commit, and push so that you can pull down the latest as we do that together. Just to make sure that we're all good here. Git fetch. And I need to git checkout step 2-1, and now we should have everything clean. Okay. And we're switching to this screen where we're going to do these things. All right. We need to replace that large block, and let me see where this file is, around line 90. Okay, so those are the buttons. I'm going to put my cursor here and scroll, scroll, scroll down through this section. At the bottom of that section, I'm going to just delete everything there. So we were leaving the footer alone at the bottom, and we've left the header alone at the top, and we've replaced, or actually just so far removed, this in the middle, and actually I think I can take that out as well. Here's where we're going to type out this section that's just going to do a test. And that test, I don't know if this is wired up to paste from. Yeah, nice. So this test is just going to pull out the default content. We're going to get its name, and we're going to render the field description. And if we're still logged in here, again, there's that field description, and there's that name. Now, when you're creating a content type, and we'll switch over to that in just a moment, you can do a pattern that can specify which field is used as the name. And in this particular case, we can see that it was conveniently named name inside of the content type. So you define a content type when you say, I'm making a thing of this kind, and it has these fields, and then that's something that you just do in the administration section over here. you go into administration, you define your content types, because that's something you're not going to do very often. You're just going to say, hey, I want to work with this type, with that type. Once they're defined, they're done. Then you come over to the front end where the content is here, and you create content. And that creates sort of like an instance of that content type. And it allows you to fill out actual data inside the fields to make your content. So we're going to save this, and we're going to switch back over to the front, and we're going to view it and see if we get that output. So here we go. We're seeing welcome to Easy Platform, and we're seeing congratulations, you just installed, yada yada. And the reason that we're seeing that is that we asked for the name of the content, which is here, welcome to Easy Platform. And we said that we wanted Twig to render that out right there. Does this part make sense? Okay. So here we've said we want to render a field of the content. Which field? The description field. And there we see that the description says, welcome to Easy Platform, congratulations. And here we see, welcome to Easy Platform, congratulations. So watch what happens if I go into edit this content. In the description, welcome to Easy Platform Web Summer Camp. And here, of course, your editors have all of the tools that they need to change things to be, let's say that should be header 1. Once you've gotten things the way that you want them, you publish the content, lock it in. It's now automatically versioned. So our new version of this content has been saved. We see that it's a header 1. I'm going to switch back over here. Looking at the front end where we're asking for that content to have that field rendered. And here we see, okay, we've gotten that change. And we've gotten the cycle of asking for content from the repository, putting it into a Twig template, and having that rendered. The reason that that content is being rendered is that we have specified in our configuration that ID location 2 should be the one that gets this template and renders that template. It's a full view, so it's the whole page, and it's because of location 2. If we wanted to specify a different location, 3, 4, 5, then we could have a different template for each one. And each location could be very specific to whatever we want in that template. It could all still be pulling from, well, locations have one content, so you can specify a specific piece of content if you're not wanting to grab it by location as well. Let me find in our documentation where we specify the different kinds of matches that we can do, because that's important. doc.easy.no. And we've tried to make this easy to search, and let's just see what happens with match. I'll go to content rendering, and here's where you can read about the different kinds of things that you can use to match things. You can do it by the content, you can do the content type. Here's what we're using, ID location. And there's a lot of different ones. We won't go into all of those. But if you are looking for more information on that, you can see under the developer documentation there. And
I have a question.
yes.
What if you want to match multiple locations? Do you need to put a block for each location? Or is there an option in the YML file to just put in multiple locations at once? So ID/location to comma 4, comma 7, etc. Or do you need to put in different blocks for each location?
I believe that you have to do different blocks. Can you guys help me out here, easy people? Okay. Here, can you?
Square breakers? Because it generates an array in the UML, and then you just put the numbers with the comma separated, and it works fine.
Does that sound? All right. So where did our tutorial page go here? Let's close that. Yes.
How did you get to this content rendering slide on development?
Oh, the documentation page?
Yes.
Here's what you do. Go to doc.easy.no, and then you can click on the developer documentation. And then this is where we have, sometimes this gets collapsed, this is where we have everything for developers. What I did was search on the thing that we were looking at, which is match. So I did a search on that. I typed match, and then as the list dropped down, I saw content rendering, and it seemed familiar to me because I've already read about it and worked with it a little bit. And so I clicked there, and as fate would have it, it was the right page. Yeah, and when I was preparing this, I identified 3 goals that I wanted to accomplish. One is to let you see what it's like to build something with Easy Platform. 2 is to understand what the product is, what it can do for you. Those kind of overlap. And number 3 is definitely to know what's next. So we're going to have 2 additional sessions from Easy staff that will go into a lot more detail. But it's also important to understand how to find resources. So I'm going to stop the development part for just a moment because that's a really good question. How do I find things? And let me just give you a really quick tour of where you can find the things. We've got community resources here. And professional services. If you have an enterprise license, you can have the professional services training and on-site assistance. And here's the community resources. Obviously, we've got this documentation right here. And we've got the Slack. Is everybody here on the community Slack? If you're not on the community Slack, you should definitely join. It's a really great way to keep in touch. And we've also got information on how you can contribute if you want to, like let's say you're reading a documentation page and it just doesn't cover it. And you talk to someone and they say something that's very helpful. You want to see that make its way into the docs. Then there's instructions on how you can participate in the documentation as well. And then just really quickly going over what we have here. Getting started, of course, just gets you installed and points you at this tutorial that we're going through. And then in the tutorials, we've got a couple of different ones. We're building out more, and we're really wanting to do a lot centered on this bicycle route tracker theme. Even though what we're demonstrating right now today is very basic and not showing a lot of the power that Easy Platform offers, there's obviously a lot more that we can do in going into depth with that. So we've really been organizing our assets and resources around building it out and making it more and more advanced. The API, you can see a reference to the API, and for example, when you're working with a controller and you're wanting to see the reference for the PHP API, you can come over here and take a look at the things that are available to you. And we've got the complete guide to Easy Platform, where this API is kind of just a detailed view of the functions. The complete guide is meant to really be comprehensive and go all the way across. So obviously a search is a great way to find something specific, but we want to develop the complete guide to the level where if you start at the introduction and you finish at the end, you really can come away with everything that you need to know to become certified as an Easy Platform developer. And we've got the cookbook because sometimes you might have a specific solution that you need to accomplish and it just requires a list of steps. If it's fiction, if we're making something up, like we don't really have a bicycle route that we're tracking. We're making this up just for the purpose of an example. So that's a tutorial. If it's nonfiction, something that you would actually cut and paste and use in your product, then we categorize that as a recipe under the cookbook. So that's just a quick introduction overview. Any questions about what's available, the resources? Okay. So if it doesn't make sense, if it's confusing, please let me know and we'll fix that. We're trying to make it be the best possible resource that we can. We'll be moving it into easyplatform.com and everything will be very well organized, especially with your help, with your feedback. Okay, so let's get back to our page here. So we've cut out this huge chunk here, and so this document is no longer really a useful place for us to look. And I'll close that and close that. This is the step that we're on right there. So we've rendered the name of that content, and we've rendered a field of that content. And now we're going to kind of chop things up a little bit because it's useful, instead of having just one big twig file, to have pieces for the header, pieces for the footer, and pieces for the main content. So whenever you define a block in Twig, you're giving it a name that then can be overridden whenever you've got another Twig file that wants to put something in that block. This block right here is content, and it can get really confusing. I was struggling whenever I was learning what's going on here because you get the word content used so much that it's almost, you go content blind. So in this particular case, the word content means that there's a twig block, and that twig block is named content, and that's the place that we want the content to go. So the twig block's content is a name for a place that we'll put things, and the content is something that's stored in the repository that's being pulled in and can be put there. Does that make sense? So we've got this block that we want to put in. I'm sorry, I scrolled too soon. Okay, so here again, links out to the Twig reference, not written by us, but pretty useful. I got a little stuck on a couple places there, but I was able to do a couple searches, Stack Overflow kind of stuff, and get through it. Templates declaring blocks, and can extend other templates and modify the blocks by the parents. I'm going to flip over to easyplatform.com and show you an example of extending a Twig template. Remember that our views are stored in the app folder, in a resources views folder. And then inside of the full view, you can see in this particular project, the home view. And inside of that, here's just a little tiny bit of stuff. Not much going on here. You can see that it extends this other template. And here you see we're specifying inside of this full view, the content block is going to do exactly what we just did in the tutorial, in the bike ride. And that's basically just get the name of the content and render one field. Now, extending the page layout.html .twig file, let's go look at that file and see page layout.html.twig. So this is what was being extended. And in here, you can see block content. So the reason that that content shows up in that part of the page is that the name of the block was the same in the parent template and in the one that's being extended. And by having that same name of the block, we're overriding in the one that extends it, and that content gets placed here in that section. So that's what's happening in there. So we're creating that same kind of thing in our bike ride. We're going to change the central section. And I'll close our config. Does this have a zoom? That would be really cool. I don't think there's a zoom in this. Anyone? No. Control and mouse wheel. Unfortunately, no. Okay. Okay, so I'll just grab that same section. Let's get rid of that, because we accomplished our goal of testing that we can pull out something from the repository. So away it goes, and we're going to paste this in. Change, okay. Sorry, I skipped a step. We want to create page layout.html. So this is going to be kind of the same thing that I was showing over here in how we did it in easyplatform.com, where you've got page layout.html.twig and then a full view that extends it. And the idea here is that you're going to reuse things like just basic page declarations and grabbing in your CSS files and JavaScript files. The full view is only interested in the part of the process where you grab the information that's unique to that particular page. And that's why we've got the content block, and then we separate out to have the full view with a very small amount of information, only what's necessary to specify the things that make that unique. So we're going to do a similar structure over here, and we're going to copy everything over. Let me do undo. Save all. Okay, so my keyboard shortcuts are not doing what I want. That should work. Project. No. Resources. So inside the full folder, we've got the original file that we've been working with. Now up above that, we're going to create a, well, you know what, I could really just do a copy and paste of that file. Copy and paste. Now we're going to name this one page layout. There. So we've got two files exactly the same because we're partway through what we're actually trying to do. And what we're actually going to do is replace part of that HTML, which we now have 2 copies of. Part of that HTML is going to just say, hey, make this part the content block. And then in the other file, we're going to get rid of all of the surrounding parts, and we're going to say, hey, the part that really matters, where we get the content, is going to be just in this file. So we're going to copy the contents in there and change the central section to this. Come on, there. All right, page layout, the central section. From the top of the footer, there, to the bottom of the header, there. I'm going to delete that portion. So now we've got just the header, just the footer, and inside we're going to say, hey, I want to have the content block shown here. Now we're going to go over to this file, get rid of all of that surrounding stuff, and we're going to say, hey, I just want to extend that other page, that other twig template that provides me with my header and my footer and all of that, and I just want to be the part of this process that renders just the content that is the full view here. So we've defined the block named content, and we're going to edit the whole file to be just this. So we can delete absolutely everything, and that's all we need there. So now what's going on is that this is the sort of master page, and this is extending page layout and creating the same name for the block so that it overrides that part of the page, and it's sticking inside of that an H3 and a div, and we're doing exactly the same thing because it's useful to see the same exact thing happening now that we've started to split it out, so that we've got at least some familiar ground, something to hold on to as things start to expand and stretch out a little bit. Okay, so this should work. This may or may not work. Yes, that was the one. And this is something that we can try right now. If I can save this, go over here. Okay, I think it's working. Now, because we've done exactly the same thing, but we've broken it out into different pieces, we can't really tell if it's really working or if it's looking at something else. So I'm going to stick something in there to just be like, hey, this is a real thing. Because I'm curious. I want to see, did I really change this, or yes, I did. This is a real thing. So you can see that popped out because in our code, we said inside of the content block, make these things show up inside of this block. We're extending another twig template, and that twig template has another block by the same exact name. That block says, hey, if you want to override me, I'm sitting right here, use the same name, and then extend it, and it can swap in right there. In fact, just to make that super clear, let's say I am above and I am below. So this will show you exactly where that block is. So here's I am above and I am below. Now, due to the way that our CSS is set up, it's kind of got this angle thing going on. But the idea is that in the source code, you're seeing the top and bottom of the content block type. View page source. Find I am above. That's where the content block in Twig is beginning, and I am below. And you can see that inside of that, we have these things rendered out. These are the things that were pulled out from the repository, and that is the content that's stored right there. Does that make sense so far? What we just did? Splitting it out into the different templates. Okay. Create your content model. Yes?
We make changes to the templates. Why we didn't delete the cache? I thought, as I understood, we have to do it every time when we do changes to the template.
Yeah.
Not mandatory.
Not as a rule. When you're in development mode, you should not have to clear the cache. For some reason, which is not clear to me, there are situations where you actually do have to clear the cache. So, to be on the safe side, when I'm doing something critical like editing the YAML file, or if I suspect highly that things are not working the way that I expect they should, then I'll clear the cache. And another gentleman gave some feedback as well between the session. He pointed out that when you do the hard RMRF, you have absolutely no information about anything that might go wrong. When you use the command that is shown to clear the cache, and I want to say it's up here, then you're able to see feedback as that process occurs, and it can be like, hey, here was the problem. So officially, what you should do is this command right here, and officially, you shouldn't have to do it when you're in development mode. But because things can be quirky, there are some bugs to be ironed out, maybe with Symfony and the way that they're handling things. That's just a good idea to keep in the back of your mind as you're developing something with Easy Platform, or probably with any Symfony site for that matter. You want to just keep in mind, maybe the cache didn't clear, and maybe this command isn't going to do it for me. So keep that secret weapon of the RMRF where you can pull it out if needed. Yes, Yanni?
Yeah, and if obviously if you run a cluster environment where you have multiple servers and the cache files are not stored, then RMRF won't obviously work. So I would always keep in mind that cache clearing, especially in multi-server environments, is what you should use instead of some other methods to just sort of point out that, which is something worth considering if you're running multiple different front-end servers and so on.
So if you do a clear cache with the command, that would somehow go to the other servers?
Yeah, if you're using the caching services, it uses cache. So if you use Redis or Memcache for caching, then this one will purge the caches based on your configuration.
Okay, so it's when you're not using the file system.
Yeah, exactly. But if you're using the file system, RF is just fine. It's sort of nitpicking that I thought of bringing up.
That's a really good point, because that would be very disappointing to be in an environment where that RMRF doesn't work and be like, oh, that was my secret weapon. Thank you so much. So speaking of documentation, we've got a link here in the tutorial to the fundamental concepts. And this is a really good read if you want to get deeper into the concepts that we're talking about. Again, as I described at the beginning, I'm very new to Easy Platform, new to Easy Systems, and so I've been able to capture the experience of coming to the product, 18 years of PHP, but none of them with Easy. And so, I'm showing what I have learned and showing the very basic first steps to use the product, to get it running, to do some of the things. Our much more experienced members of the team will go into a lot more detail. So if you're frustrated that I'm sitting here kind of going over stuff, shaking a baby rattle, this is just meant to provide the coverage of very basic first steps in. The documentation covers a lot, and you can reach out to anyone on our team anytime, and we're happy to really fill in any gaps and answer any questions that you would have. Okay, so I won't just read this off the page to you. There's additional references. But the step that we want to do next is to create 2 content types. And I guess one way that you could think of a content type is sort of like in PHP where you have a class, and then whenever you actually instantiate the class, that's the thing. The class sort of defines the kind, and the instance is the thing. So a content type is going to define the kind of thing. When you actually go in and create content, that's the thing itself. So what we want to do is work with 2 content types. We're going to have a ride and a point of interest. And these content types are going to be things that are defined in the back end as we edit content types under the administration panel. And as we do that, I can show you what I was talking about earlier, where you can specify what about this thing should be the name. So let's see, ride and point of interest. We're going to go into the back-end interface here, and I'm just going to strip the end off, hack the URL to get it back to, there we go, get it back to the front. Okay, so I don't see the administration piece because that made it go away. Oh, I think we're still loading our page here. Oh my goodness, and you know what? We're going to need some power going on here. So does everybody have the code that we were typing together? Or do you want me to commit what I have so far and push it? Okay, I can't see the bottom of the screen there. There we go. Get status. These are the things that we've affected. We have created the new page layout, and we have edited the full view, making it a very tiny amount of text because all it's really doing is handling that which makes that full view unique. So we're going to add, and this is usually a really bad idea, but just doing star, it'll complain that we're ignoring some things, and that's fine. So get status says these are the things. Get branch says that we're on step 2-1. And so I'm going to remember that I'm in a VirtualBox, and I just need to cut and paste those and actually do this in the right place. So root folder, and we'll do that in here. Step 2.1. Resources view, root folder. This should be everything. And there's that saved. We also need to have the view, new. That's going to be page layout .html.twig. Yes, add that. It's a folder above the full because it's just in views. And we're going to edit that by pasting everything in from here. That did not work. Machine. Copy. And paste. That's not cool. Tell you what we can do is undo this. And make the edit right here. So if you missed some of this, I'm redoing the steps, so here's a second chance. I'm going to copy everything and paste it into this page. And then in here, we're going to have only the contents of root folder, extracting, we've got page layout. So only the contents of that go in here. This is being backwards, isn't it? Page layout has all the things. Root folder is the tiny one. Root folder, page layout. That is backwards. Okay. I've got two different keyboard layouts. This one is Emacs, and the other one is not. So it's kind of confusing to switch. But that should be that. Root folder, we've got our block. Page layout, we've got everything. We want to replace just above the footer all the way to just below the header. There's the header. Right there. And we want to put in this piece. Nope. There. There. No, that extends page layout now. Come on. Page layout needs that section. The block goes there. And that is the full contents of the root folder. There we go. Now I'm going to commit that. Caught up. Push. So you should be able to do get fetch and have step 2-1 up to that point. And the content model. So let's go into the content model overview. We'll edit these content types and we'll have these two kinds, ride and point of interest. So let's go into the back end. Hopefully that page is loaded by now. There we go. It has not. That's disappointing. With our time running short, I wonder if we have a different environment that would let us show the creation. Yanni, you had up a demo page. Oh, here it comes. Okay. There we go. So to create a content type, you go to the admin panel, and it's squished down. Usually it shows all the way across. Content types. And then these are the default content types that ship with Easy Platform. Content is the sort of category that everything else is going to go under. Users are a specific content type that we use to handle the user accounts. That's what we were looking at whenever we edited the password for the admin account. And then media is its own dedicated type that handles images and other media. So underneath content, then we can create a content type specific to what we're working with, in this case being a bike ride, and we've chosen to create ride and point of interest as our two content types. So having navigated to that area, we've got the following information as the fields that we want. And this is the part that it starts to get tricky to keep synchronized because we're actually doing something that's stored in the repository. So if you want to get it back out again, it's in a MySQL or whichever database you're using. It's in the database, so you really want to have to do like a dump of that database, save the file, give it to the other person that needs to work with that content type that you've defined, and then make sure that that stays in sync. It's not a very good experience yet because we need to look at that and say, okay, how can we automate this process? And I've been talking internally with our team about how we can really get that right. But for right now, what we do internally is we go to the other website and we actually build the content type according to specification, just like this right here. Again, the product is very new. There's a lot of things that we need to do that we have scheduled, and you can look on our Jira and see everything that we're doing. I won't log in so you can actually see the public view. You can see what we've prioritized, and you can add comments, and you can open tickets and say, hey, here's a problem that I'm having, or here's an idea. And in Jira, we have, for the building of easyplatform.com, created specifications much like you see here. This one's got a lot more going on. So I don't want to spend this whole time making you watch me type, so I think I'll just sort of talk through these next steps, and that'll make the most of our time here. So what you will do is create a content type, and I will go ahead and actually put it on the screen. Or did it go away? There we go. I will create the content type, and you can see the interface where that happens. Now, this content type, let's call it ride. And then the identifier, we could have the same thing, just lowercase. Ride this could be really anything. This could be ride of your life is the name, but the identifier, that's more like machine readable. So this is going to be just ride and ride. Description, I believe that's just notes to ourself about this content type. And here's what I was talking about earlier, where the content name can be specified. So if I put name right there, then that's going to refer to this, or no. It's going to be actually fields. If I create a field called name under this content type, then because I've put this in the content name pattern, that's going to be the content name. But I could change that to be something else. And I could have that be title. And then a field inside of that content type that's named title is going to be what matches. So when you do that step where we were getting the content name, easy content name, that's what you get, is whatever's matched against that. And
Is there documentation for that?
there should be, I believe.
For example, I want to have node ID in the pattern, in the name pattern. Can I do something like that?
Let's take a look. Do you guys know off the top of your head?
No, but we have to check it, but like it's not, no idea.
Not? Okay. Yeah, we'll have to look into that. Can you catch us afterwards? And we'll definitely track that down. So, where'd we go? So here's where we're defining all of these parameters. And down here we can define field definitions. Now this is another area that needs some work. This UI blew my mind whenever I first saw it, and not in a good way. But our designers are working on this, and we're implementing improvements. So here's how this portion works right here. If I want to add a field, which I do, then I'm going to start by selecting the type, and let's say that that's going to be a rich text element, which, if I'm not mistaken, Easy Published used to use XML, Easy XML, and now we've got rich text in Easy Platform instead. So here we can add the field definition. And essentially what we've done is similar to how you might say you're creating a class of human and maybe giving attributes like it has limbs and it has certain compatible foods. So each field is under the content type, and we're going to set this field as an example, not to be searchable, not to be required, and you can name the field something. You remember we can choose to have something like title, and we could do that pattern for the content to say, hey, I choose to be named and identified by this field by using that match up here, content name pattern as title. So if we did that, that's an example of what I was talking about. But what we really want to do is take a look over here. Once we've created these things, like in this example, name is the one that matches, so that identifier becomes the match. And we would fill out all of these fields, and then we would go into content tree and create a folder using the create button in the action bar. That's off to the side right here. So I'm just going to save this. If you wanted to add another field, at the bottom of that, you would choose the type. So like, let's say you wanted to add an email address to this ride, add field definition. You would specify all the things. Name, email. not searchable. Okay, so when I click OK, I'm creating this content type. When I go back over to content, I can create something, and if I could see, the thing that I can create is listed. We've created a content type. It's now available to be one of the things that we make. So when I click on there, you can see the things that we defined. In this case, title and email. And because we're very short on time, I didn't go through and build out the whole thing. In fact, what time does this session end? Is it 12:30 or 12:45? 45? Okay, cool. Okay, so you can see how you define a field type. You can see how you create one of those things, one of those types. And in here, let's say I should not have been rich text because I am a title. And email is there. I can double click on parts of it. I can edit right in line there and say I should not have been rich text because I am a title. And I can save to keep a draft, or I can just go ahead and say, hey, let's take this live. Let's publish. So now I have content that I created, and it's of the type that I created. And you can see details in the process of creation. Incrementation has occurred in the ID of the content and in the location ID as well. These numbers are going up, and now I can grab hold of the things based on those numbers. The particular content that I just typed with my email and the statement that this should not have been rich text is labeled with the number 30, I shouldn't say labeled, it's identified with the number 52, that specific thing. And the location is identified by the number 54. So if I want to grab something based on the location 54, that location will have one content, and that content is this particular thing that we made. Now, I'm going to go back to the top here and go to locations. And because I've gone to the top, you know that default stuff that we were working with, ID location 2. Let's say, okay, I created this other content over here, and that's what I really care about. I don't really care about this default stuff, so I want to really swap it in. I would love for that content to obtain and inhabit the location ID number 2, but it's already taken. So what I want to do is swap it in, and that means that that content that we just created is able to inhabit that ID location 2, and what was previously living under ID location 2 is now swapped out to this new thing that we just made. So I'm going to select the content item. There's the one I want. But because the UI is so small, I can't see it. There we go. Confirm selection. Can't reach the things now. You guys know what I'm doing wrong here? It's not letting me go to confirm selection. Select. Let me check.
Maybe this content can't have a node under it.
Exactly. It's you have to select container. Yes. in the content type.
Okay. In the content type. So back to editing. Content types. Ride. Can contain sub-items, is that the one?
You should edit it.
Yeah. Container. Okay. And then back to content, where we have the locations of this content. I want to swap. Okay, so now that I can do that, thank you so much. Now that I can do that, whenever I look at this content's details, it now has location ID 2. That means that where we were specifying a match over here, inside of easyplatform.yaml, we said, hey, anything matching ID location 2, let's kick in this template. And then when this template is kicked in, it is in the full folder, right there. And it's saying, hey, I need to extend this other template. So it goes and it grabs the surrounding stuff. And it is then trying to render the name of the content and a field called description. Well, I just defined this content type and it doesn't have a field called description, so that's not going to actually work. But what it does have is a field called email. So whenever I save this, easy content name, okay, that's whatever we told it to match. Let me double check on it quick, because I think that I might have left it in a mismatched state. Let's go to admin panel, content types, and we'll check on what it actually thinks of as its name. Here's the ride. And it's saying something called title. So that's cool, because we actually do have something called title, a field called title. And that's going to match. So now that I've edited this to be a real field that actually does exist and hit save, we should be able to go take a look right there and see, okay, I got back I should. And as I recall, that was trying to say I should not be this type. I should not be a rich text field. That should be just a simple text field. And here we see the email that did in fact get rendered because we specified that we wanted to pull that out. So we've swapped the content into that location. The location still matches the same exact number, but now it displays that content instead of the default content. And now that we've done that, we're going to go to content structure. I can go underneath to this content here, and I don't need that anymore. It's just the default. We're all done with that. So I'm going to send that to the trash. Confirm, yeah, that original default stuff that we started out with, we were just using it to play around. We send it away. Now the one thing that we have is an instance of the content type ride, and it's only got those two fields. And I would love to continue and go into building it all the way out, getting a controller going and all of that, but looks like our time is running out. We said 12:45? Okay. So with just a few minutes left, do you guys have any questions? Anything that you want us to go over? Yes?
The content types on Easy Publish, there were migrations.
Migrations.
Is it still possible to do migrations for
content types?
Migrations for content types. Can you?
Or the package, in the backend, you could export the packages.
Yes. So in Easy Publish, you had the possibility of exporting content types. In Easy Platform or Studio, there's still no such thing. One thing that I can recommend for content type migrations is there's a few different migration bundles which allow you to write migrations in YAML format and then build those and then execute them, and then it will rebuild them based on that. But the same kind of UI that was in Easy Publish doesn't currently exist. But the YAML format, for example, is from a partner called Calliope, which is quite good in my opinion. So you can probably take a look at that as well.
Any other questions? Yes.
Where can we find valid documentation and valid criterions for the platform?
Valid notation.
Documentation about criterions.
Sorry, I'm not able to hear quite. Can you use the mic?
At Easy Publish, we have such feature as criterion.
Criterion. Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
I know where it is located, where documentation is located for it for Easy Publish 5.
Okay.
But where is such documentation for Easy Platform?
Every single thing that we have on Easy Platform should be under the developer documentation. So if there's something that isn't covered, please don't hesitate to let us know, hey, I'm looking for this. Either it's hard to find or it's not there. And then we will be able to provide coverage. But the first place to look is definitely anything Easy Platform. You go to the doc.easy.no website, which in the near future, hopefully, will move over to the developer hub at easyplatform.com. But for right now, doc.easy.no, you click on developer, and you can search criterion. And here's a list of search criteria reference. So this may or may not cover everything that you're wanting to know, but you should be able to find at least something about almost every subject. If we're missing something, please let us know so we can fill it in.
Yeah, and to add to the confusion, there was discussion that you had worked with Easy Publish before. So Easy Platform is actually using the Easy Publish kernel, so a lot of the API is exactly the same.
Why I have such question? Because I have implemented criterions at Easy Publish platform, and after migration to the Easy Platform, my criterions doesn't work. That's why I want to check documentation to find what's wrong.
Okay, we'll have to, but we can check together maybe at some point, if you need.
Okay, so we're at our time. So I'd like to thank you guys. I started out with 3 goals. The goal of walking through getting something to work in Easy Platform, the goal of understanding what the product is, what it does, and the goal of knowing where to look for more resources. I hope that we've covered those 3 goals. I know we could have done so much more, but thank you so much for allowing me to share what I've learned and helping me to learn a few new things as well, even just sitting right here. So have a great lunch, and please feel free to reach out to any of us from Easy. Doesn't matter if it's during conference hours or after hours. If we can find the answer to a question, if we have the answer to a question, we're happy to reach out and help. So if there were questions that you wanted to ask and we're not able to, feel free to grab us and we'll be happy to help you find answers. So thank you guys.